Welcome everybody. This is Philip Tracy, editor at Industrial IoT 5G. Welcome to another episode of IoT in Action. I'm here with Jim Hunter. He is Greenwave Systems Chief Scientist and Technology Evangelist. Jim, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Philip.
Now, before we get into Greenwave Systems, we need to talk politics. There are two big things that could have an effect on IoT in the next coming years. The first being the regulations that the government put in, and the second being the new administration under President Trump. So could you talk about the current regulations and how they might be affected by the new administration?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying that the regulations that are going in are actually not just local. There's changes going around the world. The European Union just put in the GPRS. The idea is that privacy is paramount. And security kind of goes hand in hand with that. Security has been where we've seen the failures as of late. But I believe that if we think about what's going on in the United States and we talk about the privacy of the individual, and you look all the way back to the government regulations around HIPAA, the idea was, really securing your identity. And what's starting to be recognized is the fact that your identity is more than just your social security number now. It's more than just your name and your address. As HIPAA provides, there needs to be something more. What was surprising to me was that this wasn't under FCC regulation. This was under FTC regulation, and I thought that was very interesting, because I had thought for the longest time that the privacy could actually be handled by going after wiretap, because the wiretap laws very clearly state, and they're different in every state, but they clearly state that at least one party has to authorize the information to be tapped into or listened into, and its data, after all, regardless of what the connection was. And surprising that it hasn't gone that direction. I think there's a lot more leniency than I expected to see in the IoT regulations. And I'm involved in this to some degree, because I'm the co-chair of the Privacy and Security Committee within the Internet of Things Consortium, IoTC. And we're guiding the industry and showing everybody, all the stakeholders that are within the IoT space, that privacy and security are paramount, and that we really need to focus on those aspects. So when we look at the new administration and these new regulations, I think it's important to remember there has to be a balance. We've seen some challenges in the past when government's gotten involved with technology or gotten involved with advancements. And mainly, one of the biggest challenges it has is it raises the price, and then the cost to get involved, not just the price of products that are sold to the end consumers and the end users, but more specifically, the price to actually play in the game. And it's really our opportunity as an industry to come together and to step up and say, we can help to minimize the regulation that has to be imposed on us by self-regulating. And I think that as an industry, that's something that needs to be done. Now, the second question. Now, does that answer your first question?
Yes.
Okay. The second question, our administration, the leadership and guidance. I can tell you that, like many Americans, I don't have a clue what's coming. And, this past weekend, we're seeing technology being used in really interesting new ways. And I think that I've seen some really good summaries by some really respected statesmen, reporters, kind of suggesting that the role has to change. The position has to carry with it the dignity and the authority that is in the power of the President of the United States. So I think that as this administration comes in and things settle in, ultimately, technology is there for our advancements in the economy. It's there for our advancements as a civilization. And this administration, like other administrations, recognizes that we have to continue to move forward. Ironically, this administration may encourage business growth. And I'm not saying that I know exactly what that means and what that's going to look like, but certainly once some of the petty back and forths are dismissed once they kind of settle in and understand that you need to appoint somebody to handle the lower level stuff. You shouldn't actually consume yourself with that top level. I think that there start to be some sort of a cohesive arrangement between the parties, between the Republicans, the House, the Senate, and the President, so that they can start to outline some strategy forward that will keep us as in the tech sector, keep us as technology creators of IoT moving forward.
Well, we're certainly hoping for some cohesion. Hope sooner
that would be the operative word. It's funny, I was looking at the Webster's or the online dictionaries, dictionary.com, word of the year is xenophobia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that cohesion might be hopefully the word of the year next year.
Yeah, that would be great. Great. Well, just some relief from politics. We will go on to talk about.
Thank you.
Let's go on and talk about Greenwave Systems.
Sure.
The Axon platform for IoT. Where does it play in IoT?
Well, so the great thing is, let's start by defining what IoT is. Okay, so I'll give you the high level elevator pitch here. Greenwave Systems is a software company. We provide a full stack IoT solution to the industry. Now, what is IoT? For us, it's actually a combination of three different sectors. It's industrial, it's commercial, and it's consumer. If I was to break down the definition of those, industrial is really where things are getting created, right? It's where things are being assembled, where things are being put together, where things are being grown, harvested. We consider that the industrial side. The commercial is probably the bigger sector from the size of the market, because it's where things are bought and sold, it's where things are packaged, they're transported, they're distributed, they're maintained. All that kind of falls under the commercial umbrella. And the consumer is quite simply the management of the life cycle once it's acquired. The process of acquisition, the process of using, and even the retirement of devices as well. So all of that kind of works together for us. You need a platform that can actually carry across all those and deliver the different service models for that. Our customers are the big service providers, telcos, cable operators, utilities, companies that want to offer next generation services. So our software platform, the Axon platform, allows us to have a single consistent language across things. We don't really care what the thing is. We don't care what the application of the thing is. In between, there's a language that is consistent for everything. And then above it, we can put analytics. So we have analytics engines that can run at the edge, analytics engines that can run in the cloud. We can translate. So into this common language, we translate. In the case of industrial, we can translate to the number of different standards that are there. In the case of commercial, we actually even help onboard some of the commercial information, some of the data that comes in. Because ultimately, the value proposition of all of this is the data that flows and can flow readily and then be interactive. If you were to look at a nutshell, the way that we see IoT as a definition, it's the management of relationships between people, processes, and things. And that's really what our platform facilitates, is the connectivity between those.
So you're tackling interoperability. A word that's used, kind of kicked around a lot with a lot of sad faces throughout the IoT conferences, trying to figure out how everything can work together. You tackle that head on.
Yeah, we tackle that head on. And the way that we look at it is, there wouldn't be a need for a platform that does this if there was one single standard for the world. Mm-hmm. But we know, and regardless of all the efforts that are going on, we know that as a human species, we still have over 200 languages, and people refuse to let them go. It's not going to happen. So we can't expect the same thing to happen in the industry, where we have money and we have investment and we have pride involved. So what we have to do is recognize that we're kind of the same thing as the things that we deal with in politics and in the human race, and that is we have to translate. So we pick the key ones. We look at an ocean on the industrial commercial side. We look at Z-Wave on the consumer side. We look at services like Facebook, services like Twitter on the person side. We look at standards for databases, and all these are basically translating into these live objects in our model that we can then subscribe to in the same consistent way. We don't care if it's a set-top box, a car, a smart lighting system for a city, or a light bulb in your home. In the data play, they all look the same with regards to, I can see when it changes, I can cause change, and I can listen to it to act on something else that happens.
Great. And another word that keeps people up at night, security. So how do you address security? Okay,
so the way that we address security is actually multiple ways. The first is the architecture. If you look at a lot of the failures that happen with Mirai and a lot of the failures that are out there, the first thing you'll find is that, oh, people were able to log into the device. What? How were they able to log into the, you opened up a door and let them come in, you put a welcome mat out there, and then you actually did not even lock the door. So the first thing you do is you meet in the cloud. You can put a lot more security in a distributed solution that meets in the cloud. So everything we have in the home is outbound to the cloud. Never have to configure firewalls, never have to configure any of that. Then within those messages, we encrypt those messages. So the messages that come from the home to the cloud are secure and encrypted. And the keys that we use are called once encryption. So even if somebody was to intercept it, they can't use the key for more than one transaction. So these type of things, and that's just the start. The idea of architecture in the cloud to separate out your information stores, your purchasing stores from your data and object stores, and to put very strong security around the logins and the configurations for those. I think that security is not just one thing you do. Security is something you bake into your product, and you have to bake it into every single recipe, every single part of what you do. You have to be security. You can't just, say, oh yeah, we're secure. Well, prove it. How do you think about security?
Yeah, great point. Well, thank you very much for speaking to me about politics, interoperability, and security, 3 things that give a lot of people headaches. Very interesting speaking with you. And yeah.
You as well. Okay, thanks.